All right, cyber traders, welcome on back here this Tuesday, April 6th. Welcome on back here this Tuesday, 2:30 p.m. afternoon time slot here for our afternoon meeting. No need for a sound check. Should be good to go, at least across both ends. I know that we are across the trading room. Great to see Leda, Ken. I saw Grant just before, Charles, Bonnie, Joe, Norman, all of our students live inside Cyber Group. Again, a private chat right now there as well. We talked about that live inside our Traders Talk workshop. Really quick, just a couple of housekeeping notes with that in mind. Maybe the only housekeeping note, but our recording of Traders Talk, our weekly workshop that we do live inside our trading room every Tuesday morning, which we, of course, just completed earlier, that is already on the student dashboard, or at least it should be in transmission right now. If it's not up there, literally as we speak, it will be up there probably in the next 15-20 minutes. But with that in mind, I mean, hey, RMO, are you kidding me? From where we left off in Traders Talk, are you kidding me? I mean, normally around 10:30, 11 o'clock, you would anticipate what we would nickname reversal time to see stocks like RMO, like the MUDS trade perhaps from earlier, and a lot of others to begin to kind of, smooth off or like trend sideways, reverse perhaps, just kind of completely go the other way. Man, this thing just kept pushing, right? So, what I actually want to do, because we don't always have the chance to do this live inside this broadcast, I know that we normally do this live in Traders Talk. So, we'll kind of do a continuation here, right? So, I'll show what we nickname level 4. Fausto at times shows this, it's book map otherwise. And, with this, gives you a pretty good idea as far as where the orders are or were from earlier throughout the day. So, where we left off during Traders Talk, that was even 12 o'clock. It was beginning to kind of tail off, beginning to kind of round off right around 10:50. Now, it's not to say all stocks reverse at 10:30 Eastern time, 11 o'clock or so forth, but, you begin to see the momentum drop off, and they normally don't provide for great opportunities at that point after. And, if they do, then we might need to wait for a false breakout initially to see it maybe make a false break initially above that resistance. And then if it pops again, try and take it from there. So we ended up catching it nicely off 1040, 1050 level. But from there, even as this kept pushing up, I was looking for a short going into like $11, 1075. I initially was looking to pull the trigger to go short there. It held over 1075 near flawlessly. So I didn't get in on the trade, but it kept going up. Well, off of 11, I ended up jumping in quick off what I thought was a false breakout. I was wrong. And it kept pushing up from that point. So you have to learn to get out if the stock goes against you, because I mean, hey, if you're there at the right place at the wrong time, you could potentially get right back in the trade, maybe what, like 5-10 minutes later. Well, unfortunately, there was no other opportunity for me to try and short, and with this going up as much as it was, as smoothly as it was, I wasn't as keen to try and just chase the trade and just lean into it. So I ended up missing the vast majority of this squeeze. And especially now that we're kind of talking about this during the meeting live, I'm not in this trade currently. But actually, just before I wanted to talk about this because I ended up taking another short. I ended up taking a loss, but it was right off of the 1140 level, 1150 right here, actually. So I ended up jumping in short when it made this kind of false pop. You can't really see it from level 4 here, but it popped and dropped. I went short from 1150. It looked great at first. I thought this was the chance. I thought with all of this built up resistance that popped up here throughout the afternoon and it failing to make a clean break over it at the time, that right here, roughly, would have been an opportunity to short, to see it reverse, drop down to the VWAP. Oof, would be a great opportunity if I was right. But it ended up making a squeeze back up. I ended up getting out on my short position as it rebroke back over 1150. I think I actually took a 3-cent loss on that, not a scratch trade, but I'm happy I got out where I did. Look at this thing now. So with the RMO trade, I ended up, of course, personally missing a huge opportunity myself on the way up. But I want to toss it to all of us live inside the trading room right now. It's of course all about the entry, making sure we can manage our position still. So I don't want to distract many of us, if any of us at all. But is anyone currently in this trade live? And if so, if you don't mind, if you can at least type the entry price right where you're in from. And Ken, I assume, is in this trade right now. He was talking all about it throughout the day today, saying if you are not long, you are wrong. And you're certainly right with that. Andrea is in roughly around 12.05. Is that $12.05? I'm sorry. Andrea in at $12.05. Bonnie in right now, right off 12.28. So we're hoping for a nice new pop coming up on this trade. Kath in at 12.11. cannot currently in this trade. I know that he picked up like 80 or so cents on the run up at least before. All right, well, folks, be careful at least at this point. If you are in from over 12, of course, we got to see this thing begin to break higher soon, because since I started talking, this thing is just beginning to drop off. And when a stock drops off, we tend to see more profit taking. One thing that caught my eye as this was continuing to move up, although I was looking for the short and I was wrong at the time, I was saying here, wow, there hasn't been a whole lot of profit taking that came in. And that was well after I was even out. But now at this point, look at all the red dots that pop up here on my book map on my level 4. So, we're hoping to see this begin to pop up higher for those that are still in, like Kathleen, Bonnie, Andrea. Looks like it's starting to get back up here right now. So let's see this begin to break this, minor resistance off of 1230. From there, 1250, your next major resistance. Nice pop back up, that's for sure. All right, let's kind of watch this just for a split second. No class today. I do have a coaching session. I got to be there at 3 o'clock first. So just want to see this continue to squeeze up here temporarily. What I will do is draw a couple of trend lines that I had on my main trading platform here. And I, normally for any of our longtime students that are inside our trading room, that could be like a jinx, but I cross my fingers and hope that it's not a jinx here. This was the trend line that I was following to anticipate the short. So I was wrong on this, where it ended up making the false break over the trend line. And on the pullback, this right here is where I went short. I thought it was a pretty good opportunity. But I was wrong with the general direction. It popped back up and I got out. But now at this point, for as much as this went up, when is this going to begin to go the other way? I mean, I'm not personally going to try and short this until I see real good confirmation. And if it tanks completely without me, then it would suck, because this thing's been throwing me for a loop all throughout the afternoon. And you know what? Hey, for anyone in right now, it wouldn't be a bad idea to even take profits and try and get in if it does kind of dip back down and make a higher low, slingshot back up. I would look to take the money and run here at this point, folks. The RMO definitely going to put on our watch list here so far. Stock is trading 115 million shares roughly. I would say that's quite a lot for this trade, and it is, given how much it trades per day. Trades about 6.7 million shares on average per day, and that was prior to this morning. So, it's definitely heavily traded, but in relation to its float, and that was a topic we talked about this morning, this has a 108 million share float. So, comparative to like the SJ stock, the ACY, it is not nearly as heavily traded in relation to its float compared to those stocks. Just talking about the SJ really quickly. Look at this thing now. So I was afraid of this happening going into the morning, going into the afternoon, of course, with this getting halted right around like 17 bucks, failed to break out higher off the 1850 high of the day. And once it re-broke below the opening print, I think it was 1750 if I'm not mistaken there. Either way, once it broke lower, that was all she wrote. And the stock is such a low float stock. It's trading 25 times its float today, trading 47.5 million shares, and it has a 2.08 million share float. Right? RMO, it has a 108 million share float. It's trading 115.5 million shares. Definitely heavily traded. Don't get me wrong. But, that was one topic of discussion we had in Traders Talk, and it's just pretty interesting to see how tradable this stock still remains heading into this time of the day. And, even though I was personally wrong on the direction heading into the afternoon, there was a reason why I was trying to trade it myself to begin, right? Because I knew that this stock wasn't going to be as exhausted compared to the others. So for right now, RMO definitely going to put on the top of our watch list. It's the only stock on our watch list, but by the time we finish up this meeting, it will definitely be at the top. So with that in mind, let's just go over a couple of other trades here, folks, that we ended up catching from earlier. The SJ we did talk about just before. We ended up catching eyes, and of course, I guess I can go from top to bottom here right now to begin, but I want to talk about this eyes trade. We did catch this going into Traders Talk, kind of turned right over to it as it was like pretty much near the highs off of 10. It was like, already making a big run, and we came to it a bit late. Eyes is another low float stock that we ended up catching going back into, early March, pop from $4, $3 here, all the way up towards over 20. What goes up eventually came back down. So the same thing ended up happening here, right? Ended up making a big pump up, dumped back down. It did make a second wind type of play here where it squeezed back up, but still made a lower high, rounded off roughly around 10 there. And at this stage right now, dropping back down, I guess you could say there's a chance it can make a higher low and run up to break higher. But for right now, I'll kind of keep this on the side, see if there's just any better looking opportunities taking us into the end of the day. All right. So I guess with that, I guess we will go from top to bottom, right? The MUDS trade, and this is the warrant. I know that the warrant did a lot better percentage wise compared to the equity. MUDS, I was more interested in trading the equity. So this ended up, making a really nice move up. This is the equity here, MUDS. We ended up seeing this make a nice pop shortly after the market opened up. Thankfully, it ended up re-breaking above a resistance off of 11 and ended up running up pretty nicely, at least in the morning. Going into the afternoon, it did squeeze back up. I was hopeful for this to, look to run higher. Actually, what I'm not really too knowledgeable about just yet, because I did take my eyes off this trade. I was too focused on the RMO. What the hell is this? We always talk about this, folks, for all of us live inside Cyber Group. I'm talking to Ken, Joe, Leda, Bonnie, Grant, all of you folks. We always talk about this. We have to find the smart money, right? What the heck is this? A 510,000 share spike of buying right here at 2:09 Eastern. Right here, it is a 497,000 share print filled. It was above the ask at $11.54 plus cents, right? So, hey, what has happened since that time? Well, it ended up making a small squeeze up, yeah, but has since come right back down. So, you know what? The MUDS trade here, until this can cleanly get back above this 11.55, I would not be as interested in trading this going into the close. It's near that price still, so maybe I'll come back to it at the end. But for right now, I'll pass. Just for right now, a little indecisive. All right, so the RMO we talked about, the SJ we looked at briefly, the BTX. For whatever reason, if you followed me from the morning meeting, I still don't know why, but ended up failing to load data for me. I don't know why I wasn't able to trade this today, but I guess there wasn't much for me to trade. Ended up dropping off after the open. It's hard to borrow. It's impossible to borrow from what I heard from students, and ended up dropping off nicely towards like 6 and under. But yeah, unless if you could short it, I would pass. I mean, it seems that you can't see it from level 3, but I know this stock has a penny spread. It has great liquidity on the order book. It's trading 43 million shares. So, yeah, at this point right now, I mean, if you could trade it and if you could short it, that would be your best bet. But if not, I would move on. The GLSI stock, pretty expensive, pretty empty order book there too. Galt, GALT, ended up making a pop and a breakout later on. Beautiful push, actually. I wish I took part in this as well. Ended up pushing up from roughly 245, 250 resistance, topped off over 3, and back down it went. It is shortable, but looks like the volume totally died off on this stock. Like, there's really nothing to focus on so far on this one. All right, the G-Box stock, I've never seen this one before. I'll tell you, here's a quick little tip. And, this just comes from someone that's been doing this for almost 7 years. And Fausto could certainly say this for, 30 plus years. But the more that you're doing this each and every morning, you tend to know what stocks you've traded in the past. Like I've said this before throughout this week as well. But just going back to RMO one more time, like we've never traded this stock, I don't think ever in the almost 7 years that I've been here. Seems like a relatively new stock, but even going back into 2020, I, at a minimum, do not recall these days to where we saw RMO squeeze up. I would normally say, hey, look back on this day. We traded this here. I legitimately do not remember this run up. So if we did trade it, I don't remember it. But nonetheless, it's this type of move like today, up 50+%, just smooth sailing going into the afternoon. I will certainly remember RMO going forward. So, I do say the same with other trades as well. Like just because we haven't traded this stock before doesn't mean that it's not going to be a good trade. It just means that, hey, if it hasn't provided a good move for us in the past, I'd rather focus on something to begin. But hey, I mean, for stocks like Galt, even, that ended up making a nice run going into the afternoon, a pop and a drop. It is shortable. I don't think I've really ever traded this one as well. But you know what? I might just put this on our side list for the remainder of this week. Rail is one that we have traded. This one is at the highs right now. Lovely trade heading into the afternoon. So easily enough, the rail trade will kind of add to the list with RMO. Yeah, this thing took a big dive going back into the end of 2018. It appears big gap down, dropped off from roughly 13, down to like a buck. And of course, just over the last week and a half, we've been trading this more so here. All right, I got a call out from Norman. I thought I saw before an XL. It did make a nice pop just earlier heading into the meeting, albeit pulling back. Look to see the stock make a higher low, perhaps make the same type of plays it made going into like noontime here. It pulled back and then made the slingshot back up higher. So maybe in a shorter form, we'll happen to see that here going into the final hour of the day. So yeah, XL we'll add here too. I think we traded this. If it wasn't, I don't think it was yesterday, but I know that we traded this stock, called it out over the last 3 to 4 days. Maybe off of this squeeze up here, perhaps. All right, so I think that just about does it on the gainer side. Am I right with that? I don't think I'm right actually with that. Got a couple of other familiar names. I feel like those stocks have kind of dropped off their runs from earlier today, like the Cara trade. Rich called out off 28, held 28 pretty nicely, at least off a false breakout, and came back down. IQ, look at this, making a nice little move back up. Ken must be happy for this trade, but yeah, I mean, hey, still really strong. So I guess I'm wrong with that assumption that I'm done with the gainer side. IQ definitely going to add to our list. I guess with that in mind as well, we'll check out Tencent. We'll check out the Neo. Neo not up nearly as much percentage wise, but I guess you could say near closer to the highs. TME though looks pretty interesting. For as much as that took a hit going into not even last week, the week prior now at this point, dropped from roughly 32 down to 15, moved all the way back up towards 20 here and above. So I don't mind the TME trade adding alongside with IQ. They don't move carbon copy, but they move relatively similar. You might even say the same on Viacom, but that's pretty expensive, let's say. Yeah, this one's choppier. All right, Stitch Fix, familiar name. Haven't looked at it today. Nice little pop. If you're into the more expensive trades out there, I mean, this looks kind of interesting. GOEV up 9%, making a beautiful push, taking us into the afternoon. Looks like this had a huge gap down going into last week. I do recall that. Ended up providing us a good short opportunity. Actually, I mean, it was both from that day, the morning and then the afternoon. I think we put this on our watch list as a short going into the afternoon. I think that was just back from Tuesday of last week. So for right now, making a really nice dead cat bounce. GOEV. Whoever said I was done with the gainers list is certainly wrong. All right, let's see. Maybe Roku, really expensive stock, $360 still at the highs of the day. Maybe if you play the options on it. GMBL esports stock, if I'm not mistaken. I want to check in on Super League Gaming. Made a nice pop going into the early afternoon. AESE, pretty spotty it seems like. Yeah. All right, that's just about it on the gainer side, folks. We have a good list to begin. Let's hop over to the losers list, see if there's anything looking just as good, if not better. Bunch of, actually not really a whole lot of stuff that's hard to borrow so far, gotta say. All right, we got some things to choose from here. Just because it's shortable doesn't mean that's going to be good. Semi-trade from yesterday. I think we put this on our main watch list heading into the morning, no? Yeah, we did. So on this trade, I didn't really focus on it nearly as much. I saw one of us jump in and out for a tiny loss, but after that, there was no real reason to jump back in that trade or try to. So I moved on. I guess the better trade would have been to short it, but otherwise, I'll keep this on my side list for the remainder of the week. For tomorrow, check it out right away. For Thursday, etc. But yeah, for the afternoon today, it's not doing us a whole lot. And with that, I guess I will jump to Mara. I will jump to Bitcoin because aside from the RMO, the more interesting thing about this morning was how we ended up seeing Bitcoin like get crushed. I mean, almost as soon as the market opened up. I mean, I came off the meeting saying, I was hoping for a really big push up at some point today or tomorrow. I guess that's still in play, but damn, we ended up seeing stocks like Mara, stocks like Riot, just get crushed as soon as the market opened up this morning. And it was all based on Bitcoin's drop. There was like no news that came out. Not that I saw at least. But this is a 5-minute chart really quickly just to show what happened. Zoom in here, that is. I mean, this is 8:50 in the morning. This is, going into 9:30. So, oh man, just if you were watching the morning broadcast and listening to me, I was saying how bullish I was, and I certainly am long-term and even short-term coming up in the next day or two. But This went the complete other way. Whew. Ended up taking a big drop. Bitcoin spiked back up, at least going into the mid to late morning and into the afternoon. So, that's where we end up seeing a lot of these stocks begin to find some support. CAN, which we did put on our watch list going into the market open, this ended up making a really nice bounce back up, I have to say. So whereas the others were more expensive and actually didn't make that sharp of a recovery, this ended up making a big squeeze back up, and so did the EBON trade. EBON from 5, that was a good squeeze from the $5 level. So maintained a strong downtrend off the pre-market here heading into the open. I know that EBON we put on our list specifically because there was a short report that came out from Hindenburg Research. So if you were able to short it, would have made for a good setup. But otherwise, hey, right off the 5 level here, provided a pretty slick dead cat bounce so far. For the afternoon, we're not as keen to put them on our watch list. If I were to pick and choose one over the other, it'd probably be Canon, but yeah, for right now, I like what we have here so far. All right, so I think with that in mind, I'll say once again that just about wraps it up from me. If there's anything from you folks here on social media, Facebook Live, YouTube, or for anyone live, of course, inside our trading room, type it in the chat board, let me know. Good friend Doug on YouTube here calling out the FSR. Made a nice little pop. It's only up 1.7%, but it is a familiar name. I don't know if there's news that came out on it just yet. I could certainly check and find out. Out of all of the stocks I kind of threw on our quote-unquote side list here, this would probably be the best looker of them. Let me just see if there's any news on this trade. I was the newsman early in the morning today. I'm not going to copy and paste right now, but yeah, there's no news right now, no headline that came out on this trade, Doug. So, right now, unless you do really well on this stock day to day, and you'd have to answer that for me. Unless if you do really well on the stock day to day, I just start on another stock that's already on our list. That's all. CCIV just popped. Nice 3% move there, says Jake. Yeah, this too. Huh. Pretty interesting that both moved at the same time. I don't know if there's, I don't think there's an affiliation with either of these. No headline out there on the CCIV either. Both are familiar names. This is up 5% already so far. That's from yesterday's close, that is. But, I mean, hey, CCIV seems more volatile. I don't mind giving this a look here, the CCIV trade. This one we are familiar with at least. The spreads are well contained for right now at least. The more volatile it gets, the more it will open up. Oh, and actually, I got to give our friend Mitch C on our YouTube stream the credit also on CCIV. They called that out too before. I go from bottom to top, so I apologize there, Mitch. Blue Sky on YouTube saying RMO, my broker says a 10.3 million share float. Ooh, that's pretty interesting. I believe my number here is correct with 103 million share float. 108 million, I'm sorry. 126 million in outstanding shares. I haven't seen this number off. If there's a different number that you folks see, then type it in the chat board for all of us inside Cyber Group. From Greg, he's got a double news report for us here. So he says, in relation to not just CCIV, another one, KNDI, Candy Technologies. We love trading that stock off of news. This thing's not doing anything. Following an electric report, U.S. rumored to raise the EV car incentive to $10,000. I don't know. I'm not really the most knowledgeable on the sector. Greg, I know, is just copying and pasting from Benzinga Pro, so I appreciate that, Greg. In terms of that move, I guess that explains the correlation between an EV company like FSR and then CCIV. How about a Nikola? With that in mind. NIO's not really making a big run up just yet. Any other EV stocks out there? Solo making a bit of a pop right now. AYRO looks a little interesting here. It was doing nothing all day and pretty spotty, but looks like some sharp volume coming in on this trade too. GeoEV Joe says, that's already on our list. I don't know if that's an electric vehicle company. If it is, then hey there, the more you know for me, right? Greg says FUV made a little move off of that news. Yeah, not really a whole lot to write home about there too. I'll tell you, I mean, hey, CCIV is all we need, right? And if there's any other stocks that you personally do well on day to day, if not day to day, then week to week, like the FSR, like the Nikola, crap, what's the other one? right off the top of my head right now. Workhorse, like a workhorse. Just these come off the top of your head over time, just the more you trade them. So, with a lot of these EV companies, start with the ones that look the most active right now, right? And then at that point, if there's anything else from the side list now that makes the big move, then we'll look to call it out from there. All right, folks. So aside from that, for all of us on YouTube Live and Facebook, make sure that if you haven't already, like, subscribe, notify right on our YouTube stream. I don't always say that day to day. So go right to youtube.com/cybertradingu. Otherwise, which I always say, feel free to join us live inside our trading room. Go right down to the link on the banner below to sign up for all of our students live inside our trading room. Just be on standby. I know that Rich will jump on the mic at 3 o'clock. I'm going to jump into a coaching call myself. I'll be back on at 3:30, taking you into the end of the day. Talk to you soon.